Which piece of information you know because of your job or study will shock the average person? There is a whole wealth of historical information and information generally that is not available online at all. Digitizing things takes a lot of people power that many libraries archives simply don't have. No matter how well run that event you are going to, theater, concert, etc., everything backstage is usually about 5 minutes away from exploding into a fireball. If someone has diarrhea or vomits in a pool, it doesn't need to be drained. In fact, draining the pool might even be less effective if proper disinfection procedures aren't followed after draining the pool. Instead, the chlorine level needs to be raised to at least 20 ppm for at least 13 hours after all physical pieces of vomit or shit have been removed. Doing this will kill any possible Cryptosporidium bacteria in the pool. What does 20 ppm chlorine feel like? Simply by putting your hand in the water to get a sample will cause your skin to dry up. Edit: pool needs to be closed for 13 hours, not 23. Errors in tax returns are actually pretty common in the federal government. That's why there is a literal section of the IRS that corrects your inputs. Expensive cars keep being expensive. The tires are expensive. The parts are expensive. The people who work on them are expensive. Buying a Porsche or a BMW isn't a one-time splurge. This might seem like a no-brainer to you, but I worked in a garage and I promise I saw someone having that unpleasant realization every day. That we really do try to design construction zones to get you through as easily as possible. A lot of thought and hard work goes into designing those traffic restrictions. Sometimes, there just aren't any good solutions. We can't fix it if you're driving on it. And yes, sometimes we do tear up a perfectly good road. What you don't know is that the fixing we did 3 years ago was just a band-aid to keep the road drivable for 5 until we can finish the design to repair what's really wrong. That 1.5 inch of milling resurfacing is holding the crumbling base together long enough to get the funding to do the real construction. Hotels 100 profile guests, especially guests without reservations. A shockingly low number of kids are actually on grade level and they just get passed on, whether or not they are literate. When I taught English at a Title I school, I had around 38 pass, and that was considered good. When state tests were cancelled in 2020, everyone on my Facebook was exclaiming, they are just going to pass everybody to the next grade. But what if someone would have failed the test, but now they get to go to the next grade anyway? That is already 60% of kids. The general public thinks that if they fail all their classes and the state tests, they have to stay behind because they are not proficient. Sad Lino. I work for a company that distributes ice machines for a major ice machine company. Just do yourself a favor and say no ice. People do not clean these machines. I'm a writer for corporate websites. We purposely write a 5th grade reading level so that the uneducated can read the site and so it's easier for blind people to use their screen readers. How rotten a lot of bridges are. I work in highway maintenance and quite a few of them are in hideous condition and overdue for replacement. I can think of one where the deck is more or less held in place by gravity and moves up and down independently of the structure beneath, which is coming misaligned because of a lateral force put on it by eroding river banks. Fortunately, that one is finally under contract to be replaced this year. I work in an upper management in large company, and I am shocked how often people think something is calculated move with data that we analyze to come up with conclusion that X is the most profitable way. Even if we have analysts with data, most big decisions are done by some C-suite person or in a meeting, nobody reading any data or maybe just a front page and then just saying fuck this. We will do it this way, even if it completely contradicts the data. It's just a bunch of random guys betting on their hunch, rarely asking for data on anything. Even if something is calculated, it most likely is because we have a problem with it for X years and someone says we will do it other way and numbers turn out better. No longer a problem. There is not much logic running companies. People in retirement homes have a ton of sex, both couples and widows. There is also a massively high rate of STDs amongst retirement home residents. Retirement homes have among the highest infection rate for STDs. Behold the power of Viagra and horny old people with nothing but time to kill. I'm a teacher. We judge parents based on how their kids act, and we judge a lot. Most suicides aren't dramatic newsworthy events. I'm not saying they aren't meaningful, but they happen quietly. My husband committed suicide in our home. No news crew is going to cover that, nor did we want them to. Edit, a word. Half of the world's population has a nutritional deficiency. 3 billion people can't afford a healthy diet. 735 million people go to bed hungry every day. Food and agriculture is responsible for 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions and the vast majority of deforestation, land use change, biodiversity loss, and freshwater withdrawal. Nothing matters in business if you do not know how to create relationships. Sociologist here. Facts do not make people change their minds, and lasting social change only happens when older cohorts die off. I hate both of these realities. I work at a union, and I think the average person would be shocked by the amount of abuse that is happening in the job market. Bosses strategically bullying their employees, jumping through tons of legal hoops to fire employees in the way that leaves them with the least benefits, companies going through $100K worth of lawyers to avoid paying wages amounting to like $15K. Thousands of people every month, many of them not believing they would ever need a union, that their workplace would ever do something to them. And that is here in Denmark, with strong unions and solid workplace protections. I fucking dread how this would look in many other countries. I sort of knew it was bad before I started, but after 10-ish years I have sort of accepted that no one should ever really trust their company to not fuck them over, sometimes for stupid, petty reasons. I'm a mascot performer. People constantly want to talk about how hot it must be inside the costumes, but the truth is I don't feel the heat. Don't get me wrong, I take steps to avoid overheating and dehydration, but once you've done this job long enough the temperature inside the costume just feels like normal. Before this I was a journalist. I could talk about the misconceptions there, but that would require an essay.